have many, many funny photos of me with Luke Jones. We will be doing it again in Minnesota for the Super Bowl that Ray Lewis is going to be getting into the Hall of Fame. But I left my Houston Cowboy hat in Houston, Luke, and I do not now have it to take the Nashvilles down to Piranhas on Friday night and Saturday night to wear. So, and I'm sure somewhere my cousin is wearing that. We'll be wearing it in the parade down in Houston as well. What's going on, man? Big week here for the Ravens. Big week for Joe Flacco. Big week before the bye. Big week for a lot of fans going down and wearing purple and wearing cowboy hats down at Piranhas in Nashville. But the good news, Joe Flacco looked pretty good. I mean, you and I wound up hanging out with him and talking baseball for 10 minutes after the media session on Wednesday afternoon. Joe assured me he's as good as new.
Yeah, going into the week, you didn't know if there was going to be some drama, if he was going to miss some practices, if he was going to be listed as limited, if we wouldn't be allowed to talk to him because NFL policy, if someone's in the concussion protocol, media doesn't have access to them. And lo and behold, Joe Flacco practices full go on Wednesday. He's past concussion protocol. He talked to the media. There isn't any drama left here. He's playing on Sunday. I mean, short of him spraining an ankle or hurting his knee at practice or, something that could happen to any player at practice, as far as the concussion goes, he hasn't had any symptoms really since Thursday night. Talking to him, he basically started feeling like himself from the time he got into the trainer's room and the locker room at the stadium. He was a little groggy, certainly. He said that kind of the walk from the sideline to the trainer's room down in the bowels of the stadium, that's fuzzy for him. But he remembered the hit. He was conscious enough to realize, hey, something's not right here. He remembered that. It was more that walk to the locker room and getting into the trainer's room and being seen by the doctors inside. That was a little fuzzy for him. But from that point, when he was able to take a deep breath, collect his thoughts, obviously had to get his ear stitched up, he said from that point on, he's felt basically fine. And he passed protocol. He was allowed to talk to the media. There's really no drama left here. He's going to start on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans, and certainly for the Ravens, that's good news. As you go down to Nashville, this is a Titans team that is solid. They've looked really good at times, like other teams in the league, including the Ravens. They've looked pretty bad at times. Marcus Mariota's dealt with some injuries, so certainly that's been a factor for them in the first half of the season. But the Ravens have an opportunity to improve to 5-4, and you'd surely like to be much prefer being 5-4 rather than 4-5 going into the bye. It's not an ideal position to be in either way. Clearly, they have work to do in the second half of the season, but if you can win this one going into the bye, you feel a lot better about their chances making the postseason in the second half of the year.
Well, there's no doubt about that. We've spent a lot of time talking about Nashville this week. By the way, this portion of our WNST programming, speaking of Nashville, we're going to be down at Piranhas in Nashville on Friday and Saturday night, and if I could take it with me, I would. King Discount Liquors, lottery, beer, booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. If anybody sees Paul King here this weekend, tell him that I need some Malbec. Just let him know that. He'll know what that means. If you see him there in a little cage, wave to him, give him my love. They're out in Rosedale and Pulaski Highway. They've been our proud sponsor. And I'm doing my Thanksgiving this month, and I'm going to give a shout-out to Paul King before it's all over with here this month, as well as our friends up at Box Hill Pizzeria, Tommy and Chris, and the best crab cakes up in Harford County. All the pictures on the wall, including Coach Billick. They can now be shipped anywhere, the big fat crab cakes. BoxHillPizzeria.com is the way to do that for the holidays, for Thanksgiving coming up. You want to ship some crab cakes, do it. But more than that, it's a crab cakeria. You know that. Box Hill Pizzeria in Abingdon. All right, Luke, so, this Nashville thing and going down there, and for me, they're going to try to run the football. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. That was something that was stout last Thursday. If that continues, if they can stop the run, I think everything for the franchise for the next 8 weeks really stems from that. If they can stop the run, it forces teams to pass, which forces either incompletions or maybe completions or maybe home runs. Who knows, right? Or the ball pops up in the air and down with it comes Marlon Humphrey, and that's the best part of the offense. And I think Flacco with ball protection, even if the offense stinks and they punt a lot, if they can stop the run, they're going to be okay. And this is a tall test for them, I think, with these two running backs. These are as good of a running back combination as they're going to see this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I think to me the requisite has to be to stop the run moving forward for this team. I mean, if they don't stop the run, I don't think they have a chance to win many games. Period. I mean, I just think that's the reality for them. I mean, saw what happened. The Chicago Bears with a rookie quarterback beat this team in Baltimore. So that it starts with that. I'm still very concerned about the offense in the big picture being good enough, consistently enough to win games, but this team was built around its defense, for better or for worse, for all the criticism that we've at times talked about with not doing enough to the offense. They did a lot to this defense, so it better be good. And it was good to see them do what they did against the Miami Dolphins, who, let's face it, looked like a really bad football team and then proceeded to trade their running back. So we'll see how that plays out, but you're right. I mean, you look at this Tennessee team, they have DeMarco Murray, they have Derrick Henry. It's pretty clear what they want to do. And that's not to say that they don't love Marcus Mariota and they don't have faith in him putting the ball in the air and making plays with his arm. And keep in mind, he can also take off. So that's something else to keep in the back of your mind as you're trying to break this one down if you're the Ravens. But you're right. Murray and Henry, I mean, that's a pretty formidable duo. I think one thing you have to watch for with those two is they like to try to get to the perimeter. They like to run off tackle. And we've seen the Ravens have their issues setting the edge. I mean, the one run that they gave up to Jay Ajayi on his first run, the second play from scrimmage against the Dolphins last Thursday, was a run where he cut back outside to the right, and the Ravens, the left side of their defensive line on that play lost containment. So that's something that is clearly something they have to be aware of. I mean, Marcus Mariota is a capable passer. It's not as though he can't throw. But you look at how that team's makeup is. I mean, they have
who's he throwing to would be the question, right?
Yeah. I mean, they have Rashard Matthews. They have Corey Davis. I mean, they have some weapons. I mean, we'll see about Delaney Walker. He's banged up with an ankle injury. Didn't practice on Wednesday. But they have some weapons. But it's clear the bread and butter of that team is to run the football and put Marcus Mariota in third and manageable kind of situations where if it's 3rd and 4. He can drop back to pass, but he also has the mobility that he can take off and run. But in order to be in 3rd and 4, you have to stay on schedule, as coaches like to call it. And when you have two running backs like that, it's pretty clear what they want to try to do. If you're the Ravens, you hope you build on what happened against Miami. Brandon Williams now has two games under his belt since returning, and maybe not going to shut them down to the degree that they did Miami, who, let's face it, wasn't running the ball very effectively at all. But you hope that you're not going to allow the Titans to run for $150 or anything like that. I mean, their running game's good. I mean, they're tied for 8th in the NFL. I mean, it's not as though they don't. And they have two backs that are averaging 4.3 yards per carry or better. I mean, that's not fantastic, but it's certainly solid. And the Ravens, they know that they can't lose containment on the edges, which they've had their issues with that. And that's something that you point to and say, that was an issue that wasn't all about Brandon Williams. You hope that they've made the corrections necessary to prevent some of those big rushing days from happening again like they did over the first 6-7 games of the season.
This portion of our WNST programming brought to you by Freedmont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. Choose the right lender. Carl Delmont was here early. You can go listen to that up in the buyatoyota.com audio vault as well, talking about the Harrisburg Heat and a whole bunch of tips, which we do here from time to time as well, keeping you informed of a whole bunch of stuff out in the mortgage space. FreemontMortgage.com, whether you're buying, selling, thinking about it, kind of want to get on the market, don't make a 30-year mistake. Choose Freedmont Mortgage. Also want to give a shout-out to Jason and the great folks over at DNL Window Tinting. 26 years of experience, same as WNST. Cars, boats, businesses, they put the shades on the sun. They take a squint away wherever you are, Parkville, White Marsh. They'll come to you. Give them a call. They'll take good care of you over there at DNL Window Tinting. Luke, I guess in this game, looking at the week off, there was some thoughts, well, if Flacco can't go, can they get by with Ryan Mallett for a week? We're past that. We have the other infirmary report out here right now, but they only have an hour of football left over the next 2.5 weeks at this point, which is an interesting spot for them to be with some guys trying to get back. Wallace, we can mention some of the other people, but the bye's coming at the right time. This thing would really put them over the hump to win this game, even if it's by like decimals or fractions on Sunday.
Yeah, to me, this is one of those games where forget about the eyeball test. I mean, you can talk about the eyeball test when you're playing Cleveland or when you're playing a team like the Chicago Bears. Oh, wait, they lost to them. So, forget about the eyeball test in general. I mean, things have been so bad for the Ravens when things haven't gone well this year that you don't turn your nose up to any win at this point. I mean, if it's 13-12, if it's 17-16, if it's 10-9, who cares?
Dude, this is a road AFC game that if both of these teams are 9-7 and Jacksonville gets to 10, this is the team you get the tiebreaker and you get to play in January, literally, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is why we talked about this with the Dolphins game. I mean, as much as some of us weren't necessarily buying the Dolphins as being as good as their record indicated, they're still a team that's right there if they can figure things out. That's why those conference games are important. I mean, you never want to lose a game. We understand that. But losing to the Chicago Bears at home, as ugly as that looks from a perception standpoint, from an optics standpoint, it's not nearly as costly as losing to the Dolphins or losing to the Titans. Those games where you're talking about teams that are going to be in that wild card picture. And, I mean, the reality for the Ravens, their chances of winning this division aren't great. It's just the truth. I mean, they're 2 games behind Pittsburgh. They're already a game behind in the head-to-head. And you look at Pittsburgh's schedule, they have a lot of home games second half of the season. And that's probably going to be bad news for Ravens fans wanting to win this division. So you have to look at the wild card. You have to be aware of what other teams around the conference are doing. And when you're looking at some of these games that the Ravens have played recently, it's why go back and look at that Oakland game. As much as that was a big game for the Ravens to kind of stop the bleeding after the previous 2 weeks, that puts Oakland, and Oakland's behind the 8 ball anyway. I mean, let's face it. I mean, it's going to take a really impressive run for them to climb out of this hole that they've dug for themselves. But you win those conference games, it just makes scoreboard watching that much more palatable late in the season when you know you have a better conference record than some of these teams, and you're not in a position where you have to win, and then you're hoping that 3 or 4 other teams lose. Because when things like that happen, you know how that typically works. You're going to end up getting your feelings hurt if you're relying on that much help. So when you have these opportunities against another team in the conference, another team vying for a playoff spot, potentially as a wild card, you've got to take care of business, and that's what makes a game like Sunday that much more important. Get the win, and then as you pointed out, get an opportunity to rest up, get a little healthy, healthier at least. They're not going to get fully healthy because we know how many guys are already gone for the season. But get in a position where get some rest. On the back end of having some extra rest after the Miami game, and your roster picture is looking a lot better at that point. They're still going to have issues. I mean, this is clearly a flawed football team. I don't think anyone can realistically expect this offense to click at a high level probably at any point this season, but can they find a little more consistency? Can they play a little more often like they did against Oakland, against Miami before Flacco exited? I mean, certainly the defense is going to factor in big. We understand that. I mean, when this team has scored a lot of points this year, look at the box score. They've typically had either a defensive touchdown or their defense has set them up on a really short field at least once or twice. That's the formula. And it's tough to do that. It's tough to force 3 or 4 turnovers every single week, and we kind of saw that over the stretch where they lost 4 out of 5. But if you can do that enough, then this team's going to be in position to win maybe 9 games, maybe 10 games. And if you can do that, and that's a big if, that's probably going to be good enough to get into the playoffs, because I think everyone looks at this AFC wild card picture right now, and I mean, there's some teams that have done a nice work. I mean, Buffalo is a nice story, but is there any? Jacksonville's been a nice story. If they end up not winning their division, which who knows how that South is going to play out with 3 teams having a realistic chance at this point. But I don't think anyone looks at this AFC and says, well, the wild cards are going to be 11-5. I mean, I just don't think there's any way that's going to happen. So can you get to 10 wins, or does it only take 9? I don't know. I mean, that's what the Ravens are asking themselves right now. Clearly, they're aiming for more than that, and they're taking it one game at a time. And all those cliches that coaches and players are going to spew. But when you're looking at the big picture, that's kind of the territory the Ravens are going to have to be. And to this point in the season, they haven't found enough consistency to be overly confident that they can do that. But you get a win here on the heels of beating Miami. That's not just 2 wins in a row, but that's 2 wins against AFC teams that have winning records. I mean, that's something that shouldn't be taken for granted, and that's something that could come in very handy later in the season.
The infirmary report in general, and any thoughts at all on soon to make it backs, maybe make it backs? I know we've talked about Danny Woodhead. I saw Max Williams, and there's a lot of guys walking around who are trying to get back on the field at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely, it's a lengthy list and a little surprising considering they had the extra 3 days off. I mean, Nick Boyle's dealing with a toe issue. We'll have to monitor that as we get closer to the weekend and closer to Sunday. Michael Campanero's still out. Michael Pierce missed Wednesday's practice with an illness. I mean, right now I'm not concerned about that until we hear otherwise. Terrence West is still out. They're still resting Jimmy Smith. I think you're going to see him on the injury report the rest of the year. Based on how he's playing on Sundays or on Thursday night in last week's case, I don't think that's a big concern because he's playing better than ever. But, they had the one thing like Wednesday at practice, as much as everyone was looking at Flacco and trying to watch him, and he was wearing his black non-contact quarterback practice jersey that he and Mallett wear, which is standard procedure there. Nothing surprising about that. But Ravens had 5 other players in red non-contact vests over their practice jerseys. Jensen's banged up with the shoulder right now. Ronnie Stanley, if you recall, had the shoulder issue during Thursday's game, although he did return. But Darius Webb, which we did not know about, but he was listed as limited with a concussion on Wednesday, so he must have had symptoms that creeped up after the game. Jeremy Macklin's still dealing with the shoulder. Vince Mailey had a concussion. Up. I mean, there's no doubt about that. The good news, Mike Wallace was a full go. Looks like he's cleared protocol, and he's going to be fine for Sunday. Max Williams is back on the practice field, as you alluded to. We'll see about him. I mean, this is a guy who was a former second-round pick and has become an afterthought because of injuries the last 2 years. I mean, it would really help them. I mean, as much as Boyle's done a solid job, certainly done a really good job as a blocker, but not much of a speed guy. Ben Watson's done a respectable job, but again, not much of a speed guy at this point in his career. You're hoping Max Williams can finally get on the field and contribute a little bit there. So we'll see about him for Sunday, but that was good to see. You mentioned Danny Woodhead. Keep in mind, he's not eligible to play this week. With the designation to return, you have to practice for 2 weeks before you can be activated. So he can be activated as soon as that Green Bay game after the bye, but certainly good to see him back on the practice field. You hope it stays that way. You hope that the hamstring issue is finally behind him. Keep in mind that was a re-injury that he suffered in week 1 after he had dealt with that through the preseason. Clearly someone who can help them as a receiver out of the backfield. And if he can stay healthy, and that's a big if, that 1-2 punch of Alex Collins and Danny Woodhead doesn't look too bad right now. That would look pretty good for this Ravens offense that has clearly had its issues moving the ball through the air. So, they're dealing with a lot. Not too much of it is catastrophic at this point, other than guys that are already on IR and done for the season. I mean, there's no point in even dwelling on that anymore. I mean, it's part of the reality, but Marshall Yanda's not coming back until next year. I mean, it's just the way it is for them. So they get through this game, hopefully get through it without any other serious injuries occurring, and then you have the week off to try to get. And they're not going to get to 100%, but try to get as many of these guys as you can close to 100%.
Yeah, as 100% as they're going to be at this point, to your point, right?
Yeah, 100% is in the off season at this point. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Well, 100% would be Danny Woodhead if they could get him back for whatever, the Pittsburgh game. I don't care. Give him another month. I mean, that's fine if when he comes back there 6-5, 7-6, whatever it is, and he can play a role. Wow, I mean, we saw what he did in week 1 for about 8 minutes, right?
Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of been the story with Danny Woodhead the last few years. I mean, look, I like him as a player, but this is why I wasn't overly enamored with the signing because he's 32, and now you look at the number of games he's missed over his last 4 seasons. it's a lot. I mean, it is way more than you like to see, and certainly you feel for him. He's had some serious injuries. In this case, a hamstring. I don't know how much of that is bad luck and how much of that you just chalk up to 32. And I'm not sure that once guys have that reputation for being injury prone, typically it's tough to break that, especially if you get on the wrong side of 30. But if he can get back on the field, certainly someone who can help them, because I think Buck Allen's done a respectable job, but you look at his numbers, they're not exactly lighting up the box for him. I mean, he's done a solid job. He's caught passes. He's been solid in pass protection for them. But when you're talking about a receiver out of the backfield only averaging 4.5 yards per catch, that's not exactly making a major impact. So if they can get Danny Woodhead back, great. Again, I think the goal is hopefully by the Green Bay game, but he has officially returned to practice, not on the 53-man roster right now, however. Again, that won't come until after the bye.
He is Baltimore Luke out on Twitter and Luke at WNST.net. This portion of our programming brought to you by our friends at Deli-ish on Wise Avenue in Dundalk. New York-style deli with Reuben's corned beef, tasty lean corned beef, and legit sandwiches like the Curly Fryer. We got to get that Dundalk Owl going. They got tasty pickles over there, and they cater in DeliBaltimore.com and Deli-ish on Wise Avenue in Dundalk. Also, a shout-out to our partners at Coppin State University. Your home for Eagles and Ladies Eagles basketball, as well as the Juan Dixon programming around here, is WNST.net and AM 1570. You can learn more at CoppinStateSports.com. Reminder, we're going to be down in Nashville all weekend doing it up, right? Friday night and Saturday at Piranhas. That's downtown at Broadway and 3rd. We'd love to see your face in the place down there. Toss us an email. Say hello if you're coming down. Wear some purple. We'll be out on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram and all the other places putting cool stuff out on the internet. We might even Facebook Live out there if we get the opportunity to do that. Luke, I guess, on the other side of this, things will settle down a little bit, for them, and we get to sit around and watch some of these other games unfold over the weekend as well. Now there's no World Series, so, for you and me, it's just football ahead, right?
Yeah, it is. Terps basketball, they're tipping off the season exhibition game this week.
But it doesn't get dirty until, like, January, you know what I mean?
Like, Yeah, but you just said it. I mean, during the week now, you don't have. That's always. I always have that bittersweet feeling when baseball season comes to an end. I know it's ended quite a while for the Orioles, but this was such an entertaining postseason, and you kind of have that. You have that void now during the week that college basketball helps, and if you're into the NBA, you're into the NHL, that helps, but you don't have that every night. That dependable friend that baseball is if you're a baseball fan. And, if you're not a baseball fan, that sounds really corny, but if you are a fan, you understand. So, but all attention turns toward the Ravens, and certainly other things getting into late fall and getting into winter here sooner rather than later. We'll be certainly be talking about the Terps as they get a little bit deeper into the season when they start playing some real opponents.
All right, man. We're going to head off to Nashville to see you at Piranhas over the weekend if you get an opportunity to do that. And anytime, anywhere, you can tune in to all of our WNST programming via the buyatoyota.com audio vault. That's there for you 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Planet Fitness presents our morning newspaper each and every morning digitally sent to your email inbox and distributed out. Planet Fitness, of course, $10 a month from anywhere with the Lunk Alarm and always judgment-free, and we appreciate that about Planet Fitness. Last but never least, breaking news happens first on your WNST text service. I guess it won't be breaking news that Joe Flacco is playing, but we will confirm all of that and more, as well as the aforementioned injuries as we head down to Nashville and Piranhas this weekend via the Coons Ford of Baltimore text service. And, of course, Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.